am Silva Harapetian. Welcome to another edition of our show. Nowadays, with so much information online, that if you don't keep telling your stories, if you don't use your voice to make everyone known that you are here, that you have something to say, and what you say matters, it is very easy to just be forgotten. It's one of those things, out of sight, out of mind. That's where media is today. So now more than ever, it is easier to create content, but it is more important to create significant, important, impactful content. And to talk about this is my friend joining us here, Peter Bahlawanian. He is a producer among many other titles, but his real work is his passion for telling stories that are important and significant and have a long-lasting significance from a historical standpoint. And you'll see what I mean when we start talking about it. Peter, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Silva. Thank you for having me. And I'll do my best trying to share my knowledge on this subject. And you know what? When I just looked at the screen for a second, I thought you were using a virtual screen. Wow, that kind of was a little flip. And basically, I thought it was virtual, and then I realized it's a rug. And that's a really nice rug you got there behind you.
Oh, thank you so much. This one right here, this rug, see, I'm touching. So it's real. It's not a virtual screen.
I thought it was a virtual screen because you have that option nowadays. I was thinking of putting a virtual screen for my background, but I kept it raw with all my spices.
I love it. We're going to talk about that too. I was going to say the same thing. I noticed something else in the background. I'll let you talk about it in a second. But thank you for bringing this up. It was so incredibly important for me not to use a virtual screen, and it was important for me to do this show and speak about the importance of the content that I'm going to be speaking with moving forward, sitting right here in front of this rug. This rug was actually woven by my grandmother. My grandmother used to weave rugs. I grew up in Iran watching her do it. And she used to help feed her family in the villages back in the day. She used to make rugs, and they used to be farmers, and then she would sell the rugs and feed her family at the time. And growing up, watching her do this was, I don't think I realized the impact of it or the significance of it until I got much older. And she joined us here in the United States, and she died almost a year and a half ago, about 6 months short of her 100th birthday. So when I came back to Los Angeles, and I kept thinking about wanting to create content that matters to us, that is puts everything in our lives and who we are into context, I couldn't think of a better way to honor that than to sit in front of so much history. So this right here is extremely important, and just as important as talking to you about stories like that have the possibility.
No, little did I know I was going to get a bit of a nice history of the Harapetian family with this.
Yes. Yes. And the truth is, we all have those stories, right? We all, no matter who you are, where you come from, where your family's from, where you've immigrated from, we all have those stories that are really deeply rooted, that give us context, our lives context. And it allows us to understand ourselves better and help the world understand us. And if we don't keep telling these stories, they get lost. You know this better than anyone else, right?
I've realized that if your story is not being heard, no one knows who you are. No one knows anything about it, and it's because there's so many stories to be told. It has to always come back, and you have to tell your stories again and again, because people don't have room in their heads to remember every story that they've seen. So it's always the most current story that's happening in today's time. And that's why we get bombarded. Social media definitely has changed the rules of the game when it comes down to spreading information and spreading propaganda, basically.
Yeah. Before we move on to something much more deep and layered, I want you to tell me where you are, because for those of you watching, you can see the bags behind Peter, and you might know him as a producer, but he's also the Spice Man.
I am. I have dual lives basically. Obviously, being a producer has been from a very long time. After I started my professional career, and then at one point, my love for spices came into the picture, and I decided to open up a little shop in Silver Lake, which ended up turning into 5 locations across Canada and the U.S. And then uh, had a lot of fun, running a little spice shops and traveling. And then eventually, now I'm an online business and I do wholesale. I do blends as well for chefs. So that's my other creative side that I use to kind of feel good about myself, and at the same time, built a pretty strong business. It's all about doing things that you love. Uh, Being a producer basically is really, it could be vague to some people, but to me it's very specific what a producer does. And I've kind of honed my art for a long time doing it, and as you are now, become a full bloom producer for a while now. You know uh, every little thing. It's almost like you have to be able to do yourself. Obviously having a great crew is key, but you have to be able to tell the crew what you want. And if you don't know how that's done, then you won't have a successful production. I feel, or be a successful producer.
Yes, we can't do it alone, that's for sure. God knows I've tried. But and so have you. But what we've learned to do is use the limited resources we have to do big things that make impact and are significant. And I want to talk a little bit about that. I actually want to rewind the clock a little bit and talk about how you and I met some, I don't even know how many years ago. I think
1998. That would be the year that we met, because that was the first year I did the Armenian Music Awards.
that's right.
And basically I met you searching for somebody that can fill a role that I thought would be pretty much, and eventually became, like, you became the kind of the face of the Armenian Music Awards. Even though we've had so many people involved, and but the red carpets. Remember at the time, nobody did red carpets, especially
Uh-huh.
really in the Armenian community. I mean, they didn't do award shows either, but I felt like even the red carpet, like we're in Hollywood, and Armenians, they know how to do the red carpet. I have to say, they get dressed up for it. So when we started doing that, and you were a professional from day one, and that's what I loved most about you, Silva.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the compliment. And at the time when you would mention the Armenian Music Awards, first of all, it sounds very niche because it's directed towards a very specific community. But also, you talk about the music awards. It was niche, but also, who does a music award? Like, it was something that no one had ever undertaken, and it was such a massive um, project to bring people together, to coordinate, to do the entries, to do the voting. I mean, it took so much effort and work. I know, Peter, you did not make a dime off of those, but it was so important for you to memorialize who people were and what they were doing in the art. Talk to me about the importance of that and why that's been something that's really been the driving force behind the work that you've been doing over the years.
When I went to film school, what thing that I loved the most were documentaries, and I didn't know why I love documentaries so much. And I think now in my life, I've realized it's part of who I am. I like to document things as I live my life, and I feel that the music awards, when I look back, a decade of producing that, from beginning till the 10th one, basically, uh, it archived all these incredible artists, around the world that had something to do with Armenians, whether they were Armenian, whether they played Armenian, whether they even had a friend that was Armenian. When John Densmore came and played with Aram Soroyan on stage. John Densmore from the Doors. He's not Armenian, but he was at the show with Aram Soroyan, which obviously everybody knows him as William Soroyan's son. But
Mhm.
the idea of just being able to document all these things have become more of my personality. As my life went on, I did the same thing, I think, with my films. And that's why I'm so deeply into documentary films as well. It's an experience doing the live event shows. I was always into producing music and studios, but I wasn't never really into doing live shows until pretty much the Armenian Music Awards. Before that, I had done something called the Armenian Dating Game, but that was in front of a live audience, which lasted about a year, and it was pretty funny as it was. But the Armenian Music Awards became a beast, and as you know, we tried to do it as high quality as possible with very little means and finances, and that was kind of like the challenge every year, is that even if I ended up getting a sponsor or two more, or my ticket prices went up, I just spent it back into the production because I wanted it to be even better than the year before, and so forth. You get carried away with that too, when you get into that world of doing something like an event where a lot of people spend a lot of time and energy building up to the event and then using it for their careers. And that's what it became. It became a platform for those artists that didn't get hired to do weddings, at the time. I mean, that was one of my incentives, because I would always be upset as a record label when I would produce something and release something of good quality, and not only good quality, but of very artistic high value, that it wouldn't be that successful financially in sales, because it wasn't as popular as the trendy things that were selling. And the trendy stuff were the ones that would be playing at the wedding, so they would cover all the markets, and all these artists didn't really have that many options. And I feel the music awards gave them that option. Finally, it was something, at least even if it's once a year, they can make a great song or great album and then be recognized. And then even with that, there was boosts in sales because we noticed it. At one point, I even had printed little Armenian Award Anush stickers, and they would put it on their CDs when they sold it. And I feel like it did have an impact. It's this is how this is done, and I know that we all learned from it too. As the music awards was happening, I think we all kind of were in the ship, and then the ship was sailing, and it started going faster, and then all of a sudden the ship got bigger, and everybody had roles, and everybody played their roles really well. The very few people that we had throughout the whole time, from the heads of departments, I mean, every single person, without them, the show wouldn't have happened. Every single person of that head of department, for sure, the show wouldn't have happened. And I look back and I say, even with just all the hosts that we've had throughout the years, there's so much talent that used to come and do it for free. We didn't pay them anything, so it was everybody worked together, and I found that was the key, and that made the ultimate success for the and the memories of having them now. I put them on YouTube. We have a page dedicated for it with the Armenian Music Awards, and we have a lot of footage. A lot of singers have passed away. This is their legacies, and they were part of our shows, and a lot of non-Armenian artists were part of it.
If you don't know these gentlemen, John Densmore and Stuart Copeland, the gentleman who used to play in the Doors, the drummer, and the gentleman who currently does.
There's a lot of good things when I look back at the Armenian Music Awards. I'm sure you do too, right?
Yeah, I do. I have a lot of really great memories. And for those of you watching and you're wondering, how is this applying to my life? I'm not Armenian. I'm not in this community. I'm not really interested in the music, or what you're listening to really truly is a masterclass in marketing and talent development. And let me break this down for you, since Peter is humble and won't necessarily connect the dots for you. Now, you heard him say that he was a record label owner, and which means he produced music and helped artists put music out. And this is the marketing genius behind any successful entity, no matter where you are. At the time, there was no social media. At the time, there There was no other means of marketing other than word of mouth, other than television or advertising, right? And email marketing.
Yeah, that was the key. The only way you can get word out in a group were emails, and if you had a good email list collected, that
There
would
you go.
help.
And that's still true, but I love what you did. You realized that as a record label, as these musicians are putting out music, they're not getting the play and the love that they should get. So you created some other event that that incorporated and involved the community to showcase the artists and their music, right? And when you think about marketing, that's what it's about. It's about how do I get people, a mass group of people that have the potential to buy the records or buy this product, be invested and interested in something that I'm offering in an indirect way. And in doing so, you also created a platform for a whole host of other talented people, and it created an opportunity for them to hone their skills, right? You talked about all of the core people, department heads that worked for free and stuck around and were part of it, and it wouldn't have happened without them. The reality is I run into those people, and all of those people have built a successful career, not just within the community, but just in general within the American, professional market in the fields that they're in, right? We had the guy who did lighting. I went on to become a journalist and, got my experience on the red carpet with my funky, squeaky voice and accent, right? You had hosts, you had artists, you had singers, you had set designers, you had producers, you had camera people. We had the most amazing director, our friend Mark, who is a
He directs the live Emmys, and he does
Emmys.
all the major shows. So it's we had the thing was it wasn't the quantity of the people we had. Like a big production, you have a big production, you have tons of people doing all kinds of stuff running around. But in our case, we had few people running around a lot, but they wore those hats well, and they were professionals 100%, 1,000%. And I think that's what made us respect each other's jobs and positions, and know that how important everybody is to this together. Yeah. And you're right. Obviously, one of the incentives of why I would do something like that is to create some kind of a platform where maybe throughout the year I got more sales out of it. But the one thing I did do, and my approach has always been that if you're going to do something, it has to be done right, is I approached all my competitors, all the other record labels at the time that were releasing any albums. I approached them. I took 4 of the 5 biggest companies into a committee, and they became part of the Armenian Music Awards committee. And they started from day one, they were part of it. So it wasn't just for me marketing. It wasn't just for like Peter's label. It was more about the Armenian music having an identity, a bigger identity than just having to be played at weddings. So my approach was, let's take ourselves seriously, and other people might take us seriously. And
Right.
kind of like that's what happened. And I feel like that is, people don't spend enough time and energy and things like that. I feel today they feel that this should happen right away for just the reason that's because they're there and they're doing it, and it's not necessarily thought out properly. If you do it right, there's a way. They're always doing something right. And if you can figure that out quick, then it saves you from losing money, and it saves you from humiliation and other things that you don't want to do or be part of.
I think it also, in this world where there is so much competition now when it comes to creating anything creative, right? Producing anything creative, whether it's a documentary, a film, a show, music, live event, whatever it is, there is so much competition, and there are so many people who want to get their foot in the door in these spaces, but miss the opportunity that's right in front of them. People think they have to go from 0 to 100 like that. When in reality, if you just leverage your own supporters, your own small group, if you leverage your own community, right? And a group of people that your core supporters, if you leverage something that is really close to you, that people that know you, if you leverage that into creating something, anything, it doesn't have to be on a highly professional level. It doesn't have to be on a high end professional camera. It doesn't have to be something that is going to be able to be submitted in the Emmys or the Oscars. But if you just start creating, and whatever level, that is how you begin the process and the movement of actually getting to a place where you become a professional in this space. This is a competitive industry. Media is a competitive industry. What differentiates the successful professionals from the amateurs who continue to want to do it are the people who pick up and do it no matter what it is. You just get it done so that you can learn from it and do better the next time. And that's what the Armenian Music Awards was about. You know, when I look back, I know you do too. Now that I've done live events, I've worked in professional settings as far as production is concerned, I look back and I'm like, oh, I cringe. But the reality is that was our best work then. And it got better every year, over year over year. We got better at talking to each other on IFBs. We got better at asking questions on the red carpet. We got better at the pace of the show, right? And we kept doing it over and over again. And look at the result. Look at the number of people who have come out of an idea that have created lives and professions for themselves, and also made ways into tables and rooms where our voices and people like us are usually not represented. And that's
media. I mean, that was one of my goals. Is I hired publicists from day one, just to get positive Armenian coverage into papers and any media outlets, because I was tired of seeing another fraud articles connected to an Armenian. It was like the only media we got was always negative, and I felt like that needed to change, because we don't focus in entertainment as Armenians. Yeah, we become good lawyers and dentists and all the things that matter too. But unfortunately, the one thing that really matters in Hollywood to boost identity is media and entertainment. And if you have more involved and more players, then you get to be able to tell the story more. As you started off by saying it to people, is you got to tell the story so that people understand or even know about it. And if they don't know about it, then why do you blame them if they don't care? So it's always that kind of angle. And I feel like that was important to me. I needed to have people outside of the Armenian community realize that there's an Armenian event going on, and if they were open to coming. It's not like, it was limited to an Armenian event. I wanted to make sure that if we had somebody like Serge Tankin from System show up, that other people that were in Armenian, that would know more about other Armenian artists. And that was important to me. And I felt that was my success. Financially, it was never ever successful. I lost a ton of money at the beginning. Eventually just broke even every year, kind of floated through, but made a better show every year.
Yeah. And what's been important to me as I moved on from the Music Awards and moved forward with my career as a journalist, what became important to me in living in places like Oklahoma and Texas and Michigan and Miami was to represent who I was and what I was about and where I was coming from. To be the voice in that room that said, you're about to cover the Middle East this way, but let me tell you a little bit about why that may not sit well, or let me give you a little more context to the difficulties and the differences in the people and the misunderstandings. It allowed for me to have a voice, for example, on April 24th and say, did you guys know that this thing happened to these people and there happened to be my people, and we should probably do something on this, and be able to actually represent in places and rooms and among people that would not have interaction or engagement with us. So part of, I'm really glad that I'm able to talk to you about this today, because part of the mission that I have in creating this platform is to continue to create opportunities for people to tell their stories, whether it's injustice, whether it's inequity, whether it's a story that doesn't get enough attention, or something that needs more context. We're so used to scrolling through social media and the sound bites that we don't stop and go, is there another side to this story? Is there another layer to this? Is there some complexity to this that I need to understand and research? And I want us to be able to talk about those things, and not necessarily just in the Armenian community, but in general. And we don't do enough of that. And that's why this is here. I want more people to talk about things that matter in their lives and affect them emotionally and psychologically and mentally, because there's so much coming at us at all times.
It was definitely a pleasure sharing all these memories with you. And I'm happy that you were part of a bunch of them, a lot of them, and a lot of good ones. And we were together for so long. And look, we're still, like, since 1998, we're still, working together and doing things. And we're both active. Like you said, a bunch of the people that worked with us from day one, they're all active. I like that. I like the fact that, our herd ended up multiplying in a way that was very crucial for us, as I think as an identity. So that's good. Did something right.
I am very encouraged. I know there's, in 2024, there's so much happening in the world that it is sometimes hard to wrap your mind around and your head around and your arms around it. But I am encouraged that in participation and in inspiring each other to stay focused and to honor each other's humanity in the process. Peter, thank you so much. If you want to reach Peter, you can find him on social media and on YouTube. If you want to find me, well, you know where to find me. I'm on all the platforms everywhere. And do me a favor, support us, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and look for our email when we do new episodes. Share, comment. This is how you help us tell more stories, more impactful stories, and perhaps even creating some kind of a ripple change as we move forward. Thanks for joining us. I'm Silvara Perion. I'll see you next time.